Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I have been listening to one of the Oprah podcasts recently, or podcast episodes of the Super Soul ones with Oprah and Eckhart Tolle. So may know who Eckhart Tolle is. I remember when The Power of Now came out. I read the book years ago. I would have been in late 20s, I want to say at the time. I read the book as I was reading a lot of kind of spiritual, self-helpy, if you will, books at that time. And I think some that went through and some I just really wasn't ready for, a little over my head of where I was inside myself at the time. And then when the book A New Earth came out, kind of same thing. I had the book, and so this Oprah Super Soul that they're doing a series on, and I don't know if it's a repurposed, as in they've done this before and just kind of like putting them out as podcasts. But I remember when A New Earth came out, or soon after that there was kind of like an online program you could do, and they were going through kind of the chapter and really studying the book together. And it was, I'm sure, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people kind of signed up for this online course when there wasn't really a lot of online course stuff at the time. And it was probably a phone thing actually back then. So I think this is a newer one. So they're kind of going through it again, and I was like, oh, A New Earth. And I started listening to it, and I was like, man, this stuff so resonates with everything else that I'm studying and learning, and kind of where I am in my life right now. So I found the book that I still had, and I don't keep a lot of books, but I still had kept this one, and I started reading it, and man, when you are ready for a message, or when you feel kind of called to something, listen. If there's anything you get out of this podcast episode at all, is listen to that. If you feel a pull to something, do it. If you feel called to read something, go somewhere, listen about, whatever, do that. Do you realize how many of you, by the way, maybe this is you, sister, that told me that you stumbled upon the podcast, or this podcast found you, or you don't know how you found it, or you don't know how you got here. You literally were kind of called to it, pulled to it, something, right? You didn't go, I don't know if there's any podcasts about women who want more within their life. What's that one about, right? Or somebody told you about it, or it came up in your feed, or I don't know, something, right? And so this book kind of coming back into my life was that. And there's something and so in these podcast episodes, they're kind of going through each chapter. And so now I'm at chapter 3 today, which is kind of where I'm in this podcast as well too, although I'm going to listen to the chapter and then listen afterwards to kind of their commentary and people's questions about it. But there's something that Eckhart Tolle said in this particular one, which really, really struck me about worry. And so we're going to get to this today. And I forgot what I was actually just going to call this podcast episode. Something like what you're going to see it already, but I'm going to work through it right now with you. How about that? What worry really means, or what worry is about, or why you don't need to worry, or something like that. I will figure it out, and you will see it. Again, just listen to the podcast episode. But the words that he said are this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, okay? And this really, really struck me. Maybe this will be the title of this podcast, which is Worry Pretends to Be Necessary. Worry pretends to be necessary. And then he wanted to say, but serves no useful purpose. Worry pretends to be necessary. So, Eckhart Tolle talks about in this book, Course in Miracles talks about it, most spiritual texts talk about it, that we are either in a state of love or in a state of fear / ego / the mind. Ego, by the way, doesn't mean that person's full of themselves, they have a big ego. No, it is a part of our psyche, if you will, that is connected to, in Eckhart Tolle's definition, connected to form, right? Connected to a label, connected to ego will often be, he also calls it the voices in the head. The part of you that will be angry, that will take stuff personally, that will react that will identify yourself as I am a cancer survivor, I am a wife, I am a mother, I am broke, I am, identifies yourself with some type of form. And you're going to find yourself in it. And most people live a lot of their lives in that place of ego, right? So here's the cool thing about this, and we'll get to the point of worry. You cannot be in a state of fear if you're in a state of love. And when I say that, I don't mean like you're in love. It can be that too, but just like love. Present. You know those moments where maybe you just looked over and you saw your kids and they were doing something really cute, and it's just like time stood still. Maybe that was the case with your husband or boyfriend or lover or best friend or, something else. It could be something that came together with your work or business where you're like, oh man. It could be you watched a sunrise or a sunset, right? Nature is a beautiful tool, if you will, to get to a state of being in love, right? The state of love. Love, compassion, empathy, love. Calm, love. Present. Worry pretends to be necessary. And so when we're in a state of worry, concern, oh my God, that thing is coming up. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that thing. Oh, I feel guilty. I feel shame. I feel all in ego state. Worry, concern. We're not in the present moment. So what it means when you're worrying is you are not in the present moment. You are worrying about something that happened and how that's going to affect you or other people or, your life in some way. Or you're concerned about what's going to happen in the future. So let me give you an example. And listen, just so you know, I'm sharing this stuff. I'm not going to even pretend to be some spiritually evolved master, like none of that shit. Listen, I'm in this with you, sister. I'm going through this just like you. It's possible maybe, I'm a little bit kind of further down the line with studying this stuff because I started really trying to understand myself in my early 20s and I'm turned 50 in a couple of months. So, there might be that. But listen, we're in the same boat here, man. Same boat. But today I was getting my hair done. And I don't know why it came up. It's something with my stylist, Martin, that said something about, knowing how to... We talked about kind of being present. See, we have all these deep conversations. We also talk about Lady Gaga and Madonna. But, there's a lot of this stuff as well. And he talked about, being a little OCD about stuff and worried and all this stuff. And I said, well, what's happening with it? He's like, I said something about he said well, do you constantly... check the oil every single day before you drive your vehicle? And I was like, no. And I said, you know what? I don't even know how to check the oil. I don't know. And he's like, what? He's like, oh, I have to teach you. I'm like, no, it's good. I'm fine. I really have no interest. I get cars serviced and I put that in their hands. Now, if you're like someone, you're like, that stuff's really important. It's important to you, but it literally has zero concern for me, like zero. I don't have any interest. And I said, well, what's the worry about? Like, why? I said, because for me, I go, just so you know, it's not because I did this, but I said, I literally have never had a time where suddenly I don't have oil in the car. And so I'm just present. To me, it's also, it's maybe this is silly, but I'm gonna give this analogy, but it's like, I wouldn't say many of us get in the car and go, man, what happens if I get in an accident? Like, we're just present, hopefully, right? Driving our vehicles. We don't think about that. We know that we get into a plane, the plane can crash. Not a good likelihood of that. Much greater likelihood of getting in a crash with your vehicle. But we don't get into and do that. Why? Because if we worried about that, we can't be present, right? Now, if you've had a car accident, and then when you start driving after the accident, I've had that experience, I'm sure you have too, it's a little shaky, right? Because we are kind of bringing some of the past stuff into that. But for the most part, we're driving our car like it's not a thing. With me not really worrying about checking the oil in my car, I'm like, I'm not worried. It's not even a concern. I'm simply driving my vehicle. And if something was to come up, I needed to know how to do that, I'll learn how to do that then. It's not a thing for me. Now, what did Martin say to me? He's like, well, because I've had an experience. I go, where does that come from? He goes, well, I've had an experience where the oil ran out and I was driving 130 kilometers on a highway and suddenly the car just seized and I got in an accident. I go, okay. Now I get it, right? You've had this experience, past experience, bringing into the present moment, constantly worried and concerned, right? Unnecessary. Worry pretends to be necessary. Worry pretends to be necessary. We're worrying about what happened. We're worrying about what's going to happen. And you know the craziest part of this too, sister? Most of that stuff never even happens. They are simply thoughts. Again, ego attaching to a thought, to a form. Thought is a form. Oh, what if this was to happen? What if that was to happen? What if it... And listen, it is hard to be present. I know. It's been something that I've been practicing a lot. And it came, to me together a lot more, if not just a lot of practice of it, but simply like, man, if I don't be present in the things that I'm dealing with in my life right now, let alone just something as simple as like parenting, like it literally makes me fucking crazy. If I start to spin off, let's take parenting, I start to spin off and stuff, oh my God, what's going to be like when my kids are like, have their own phones? Oh my, because my boys right now are 5.5 and 8. What's it going to be like when they like drive? What's it going to be like when they hit puberty? What's it going to be like when they're dating? What's it going to be like when they, oh my God, are they going to start having sex? What are they going to, right? Make myself insane. And where do we often live as parents? In the present moment. We don't look at that new baby that we have when we become parents and go, oh man, what is potty training going to be like? We're just focused on the present moment. Feeding, changing them, loving them, keeping this little soul alive. Not worrying about potty training or school or any of that stuff or dating. Like it's just present. And when you do go to the place of worry, where are you? You're in the future, most likely. Or maybe in the past, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Worry pretends to be necessary. Worry pretends to be necessary. And it is a choice. I know that it might have been how you've always showed up. I understand that you might have been modeled that by a parent or someone important in your life. I get that you may be around people where that's kind of their MO, and so, you tend to be who you're around. But understand this with love, it is a choice. It is a choice to go to there. And I'm not saying, again, you get to some enlightened Zen master, Buddhist kind of, space where suddenly you don't have a worry in the world. Okay, we're not all Eckhart Tolles of this world that, he has said that he basically has no ego anymore. And that's not even the point. The point is just to have that awareness that when you go to the place of worry, that you are aware. And you can still feel those things. It's not about stopping thoughts from it. Like, that's just, to me, that is not realistic. But understanding that I can go there and then I can choose to pivot and shift. And I don't have to stay in that place. And I can understand that worry pretends to be necessary, but it's not. And so here's your more tip for today, then, sister. I want you to open up your journal. And I want you to just write down everything you're worried about in your life right now. Everything you're worried about your life right now. Something with your kids, something with your husband or boyfriend or a partner. Maybe it's something with your parents. Perhaps it is something with your health, your business, money. Man, you might be journaling for a while, but let's just get it all out. Get it all out. Put it all out on paper. No, it doesn't mean if you write it on paper that somehow it's going to make it worse. No, it doesn't. You're simply acknowledging it. Okay, so at the top of your journal page, you're going to write, I am worried about, and just begin to write. And just begin to write and get all out, okay? That's part one of this more tip. Part two is this. I want you to put on a Post-it note. I've done this for a lot of more tips. Or as wallpaper on your phone. I want you to write those 5 words. Worry pretends to be necessary. And I want you to put that, either whether it's like on your phone, okay? You can also set it as an alarm, because when you have an alarm on your phone, you can also like write something in there, right? And so you could have it go off a couple times throughout the day as a reminder. Put it as a Post-it note, put it in your car, bathroom mirror. Worry pretends to be necessary. And the purpose of this exercise is not to have it be, well, you never worry again. Okay, that is just not realistic. You're a human being. You're going to go to ego state. You're going to go like, oh my God. But here's the thing. You're going to catch yourself. It is is awareness, right? A new earth. Eckhart Tolle talks about really this new awakening, this new consciousness that we need to move to as human beings if we're going to actually survive. And it starts with becoming awake. 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 Because yes, a lot of us are sleeping. I don't say that as a judgment whatsoever. It's just a what is, right? We're numbing with all sorts of stuff. Facebook, alcohol, drugs, food, Netflix. Numbing, not feeling, not conscious, unconscious. So doing things like this, right? Understanding what worry really is, unnecessary, begins to create a process of really waking you up, of becoming aware, right? And then when we're aware of something, we now have choices, right? We now have choices. We can continue down the path. We can continue to say, well, this is just who I am, and this isn't my family, and just, hold and cling to that story like nobody's business. Or we can choose different. Or we choose to see things different. Or we can choose to wake up from these things that we've been so unconscious from. And listen, the last thing I'll say about it is this. So you've got your more tip. Do not beat yourself up over reflecting on the things that you worry about and going, oh, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't. You have. And you've done it. And so now what? That's all this comes down to. I said this recently on a podcast, or I think it was on a podcast, but it's Maya Angelou quote I love, which is like, when you know better, you do better. So if you know better now that, man, I worry about all these different things, and like, God, it actually doesn't really, like, none of these things, I'm just not present. It's pretending to be necessary. This worry, pretending that I somehow think like, oh, I have to worry about people, or worry about my life, or worry about my choices, or worry about the world, and worry. But it actually serves no purpose, except maybe to stress me the fuck out and create anxiety and put me in this state of constant stress. Which we know stress is, a big piece of a lot of health issues, a big piece of challenges in our relationships, of challenges, financially, like worry. So there you go, my sister. More tip for today, message for today, finishing up a couple things. Number one, I have 3 spots left in this brand new version of the Women Wanting More 90-day challenge. Here we're talking about the 21-day challenge. There are currently no spots for that one, but the one that are now filling up for is the 90-day challenge. There are 3 spots that are left. One could be for you if you're wanting to really create something over 90 days, to have accountability, to be taught some of these tools, to take what I'm actually teaching in the 21-day challenge and just really expanding on this, going much deeper with how do I really address some of these things like worry, concern, and mindset. How do I get clear on the things I want? How do I put this into place? What are the tools to make it happen? So 3 spots or less. So here's how this is going to work for this 90-day challenge, which we begin on Monday, March the 11th. This is coming out in the 4th. So a week from now we will begin. And there are 3 spots that are open. I'm keeping this really small. There's only going to be 6 women in this group. So very, very intimate. So to get one of those spots, you need to email me, drkarenosburn@gmail.com, drkarenosburn@gmail.com, and say, I want information on the 90-day challenge. I will send it to you. If this is something that serves you, if I feel that you're going to be a fit, then we will get you registered and you will be in, okay? If you are feeling like, there's something is resonating with you about this. I know some of you have been sitting on the sidelines for a couple of years listening to me, right? Going like, oh, I'm going to do something one day. I'm going to take action. If this is something that's really calling to your heart, listen to that. Okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, I have a newer Facebook community, free community called The Journey to Feminine. I would love for you to be a part of. And so go into Facebook, type in The Journey to Feminine. The Journey to Feminine, ask to be added to the group. Okay, so go up the search bar, type in The Journey to Feminine. And then lastly, if you're not receiving the Women Wanting More newsletter, which I talk about all these things, by the way, so you don't miss out, then I want you to head over right now to drkarenosburn.com/action guide. I'm going to send you some cool tools along with that when you subscribe to the newsletter. And you and I are going to be in touch 5, 6, 7 days a week. Okay, so you can take what you're, learning here in the podcast and beyond. And I put blog posts out almost every single day. So that's at drkarenosborne.com/action guide. So I will talk to the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you waking up and being aware every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborne.com/newsletter.